It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's the Foxhole Airborne update. So Dev branches out. To the hubbub of many of Foxhole players, the long-awaited update to the game is here, and everyone is hyped. I'm excited too. Trying out all these new goodies both in the sky and at sea has been a blast. But of course, once the first day buzz fades away and we're forced to look at what we have, let's seriously ask the main question here. Are these new mechanics good? Did Foxhole make good vehicles? Did Foxhole make a good update? And that's the kind of question that would tear apart Shigeru Miyamoto's mind and probably mine as well. So today I want to focus solely on the bread and butter of this update, the airplanes. But obviously before I start, I have to say two main things here. One, this is still dev branch time when I'm making this video, so most of the stuff I talk about could potentially be changed in the future, especially after the first Airborne War, so take most of this with a grain of salt. And two, leave comments below about your thoughts on planes. I have to do engagement bait somehow, so talk about everything you think about planes, even if it makes zero sense. But enough dilly-dallying, let's talk about those aircraft. I'm going to assume you live under a rock and you know nothing about planes, so let's just start from the tippy top here. There's 8 main types of aircraft that Airborne has brought us. The scout plane, fighter plane, seaplane, dive bomber, torpedo bomber, heavy bomber, light bomber, and paratrooper plane. With the seaplane, torpedo bomber, and light bomber being exclusive to Wardens, and the heavy bomber and the dive bomber exclusive to Colonial, and the other planes just have different versions for each faction. Yeah, these planes are very self-explanatory with their category names, but especially for the ones that are shared between factions, I think we should do some good old grade school compare and contrast to figure out which ones are good and which ones are absolutely worse. When it comes to the scout planes, the Venti uses mines and the Herald uses mini torpedoes, both of which only really work on naval targets and also sort of represent the general theming of the armament Colonial versus Warden aircraft have. Colonials use traditional bombs in the sense, sure, a mine isn't really a bomb, but it makes more sense when you're supposed to drop it and it lands on top of the ship compared to the Herald, which uses specifically torpedoes, much like its later counterparts. And much like its later counterparts, I'll say my real thoughts on that when we get to those later aircraft. And obviously they look different, you know, no point mentioning that. Come on, this is not grade school, buddy. Keep up with the class here. Do you want to fail your next exam? Now, when it comes to the fighter planes, for some unexplained reason, the Harbinger just absolutely outclasses the Colonial's Blind Silver. The Harbinger has more health, an entirely extra gun, and is for some unexplainable reason faster to repair compared to its counterpart. And there's plenty of issues to mention here, and I think the main one is that these two planes are exclusively plane-to-plane combat, more so against each other. So having one which is infinitely better compared to its opponent really sets the stage for like, well, you know, sure, a good Blind Silver player can potentially beat a Harbinger, but stat-wise, the Harbinger is going to explode that thing time and time again. Like, sure, you know, you can have a plane with a 14.5mm cannon and 6,000 HP while its opponent has 5,500, but why not just have those features be split up between the two planes so they have some actual advantage over the other one, you know? Why doesn't the Blind Silver have more HP, but it doesn't have this extra really cool armament, and actually does have a slightly slower repair time? But no, it just all goes to the Harbinger, and now the Blind Silver just seems like a dork in comparison. I can go on about this forever, I feel like, but my final thing I want to say is Spatha and Outlaws are meant to be equals on the battlefield, and while the Outlaw has a larger cannon range along with an anti-infantry machine gun, the Spatha actually has more health and armor, so that's exactly like what they could have just done for planes, but they didn't, and it just annoys me to no end. And on the topic of fighter planes, the Warden Sea Fighter. It's stuck in such a weird existence where it has to be there to justify why the Mercy aircraft carrier is the way it is, but it also can't be as good as its counterparts, otherwise the Wardens will have 2 really good fighter planes compared to the Colonial's 1. So, you know, obviously the Seaplane Fighter has to have a lot of the same stats as the Blind Silver, but also still have more flight time, which further reinforces the point the Blind Silver is just stupidly weak for some reason. But beside that stuff, the Sea Fighter has really nothing going for it, and I'd easily argue it's the worst plane that's been introduced in Airborne, and I doubt anyone's really going to be clamoring for its usefulness. Of course, your classic dogfighting material isn't the only type of thing we've got. We've got another type of plane. Starts with B, rhymes with bomber. Now, when it comes to your small bombers, your Man of War, your Myrmidon, I'd say the difference between these are honestly more justified because they have different intended uses compared to the fighter planes, which are both meant to be essentially the same. Like, the Man of War has 5,000 more health and also is way larger than the Myrmidon, but frankly, I think it needs that, considering how the Man of War is meant to be near the sea level at all times to shoot its torpedoes at larger ships. It needs that to be able to tank the larger hits it's going to take, especially from the heavy payloads that large ships carry. And frankly, the Man of War needs these buffs compared to the Myrmidon exclusively because of the fact that it's very limited in its versatility. Since it uses only torpedoes, it's then only locked to maritime combat, while the strike bombs of the Myrmidon can both cause terror at land and sea. So, if you're stuck in Heartlands or Callahan's Passage, that torpedo bomber is going to be completely useless. Plus, the Myrmidon can actually do some decent damage on the subsystems of any large ship, so it's not even a problem of like, oh, well, one ship is really good at sea and one ship is really good at land only. No, it's one ship is really good at sea and the other one is good at both land and sea, so the torpedo bomber just feels like a really wasted investment. And obviously, yes, I know the Harbinger has the 14.5mm cannon to deal with vehicles, but that's stupid, I don't care. And moving on from that, of course, you have your heavy bomber and your light bomber, which, despite having the name difference, are really just the same aircraft. Sure, the light bomber uses 3 less bombs and has 1 less seat, but they have the same armor and also the same field time, oddly. So, beside those minute differences, they're basically the same aircraft, which is fine because the bomber type of plane is really cool, and having that in Foxhole is just a dream to have. I love the idea, it's really cool. Plus, both of them are actually well designed to begin with, so there's not really any ill will here. Like, the main criticism I can have for bombers are how they're kind of helping to kill off the build meta in some sense, especially since the T1 and T2 Howie nerf that comes with this update is just also allowing artillery to run rampant on builds. The addition of another super vehicle that basically fucks over buildings as its core use definitely does not help. And so I just kind of feel bad for all my builders out there. My heart goes out to you. And, one little unrelated thought to end the chapter here. Now that we have bombers fully in Foxhole, I think the last thing needed to enter a true LARP phase is have one hex be just entirely a city. Like, no grasslands, no flat anything. It's just one massive city hex. And I've talked to plenty of people who also think I'm right on that one. It's a cool thing. Put it in Foxhole, please. So the big thing with Navy this update is the aircraft carriers, and while the Poseidon looks like your classic World War II aircraft carrier, the Mercy looks like a modified Callahan, but more accurately it looks like seaplane carriers, which only really saw use during World War I. It looks silly, and in all honesty, appearance alone and I guess use alone, it's way outclassed by the Poseidon. Now, outclassed actually might be a bit of hyperbole. I mean, as ships, they're pretty similar amounts of armor, similar armament, similar amount of fuel, although the Poseidon has more fuel time. But as ships, they're generally similar in that whole shebang. The main difference is the aircraft each ship is actually able to carry. While the Mercy primarily deals with the seaplane fighter, it can refuel and rearm both the torpedo bomber and the Herald, not the Harbinger at all. But the Poseidon can refuel its fighter, the Blind Silver, along with the Myrmidon and its own scout plane. But even if not designed, you are also able to land both the paratrooper plane and the heavy bomber onto the Poseidon, so that's another massive plus for that ship. So, the Poseidon is definitely outclassing in some shape or form the Mercy, but I think the real issue with both ships is their viability. Like, you can easily predict a high difficulty in getting either of these ships used at all. Firstly, they're super expensive, not even to mention the expensiveness of the planes that will be on them at all times. And because of that expensiveness, you don't want to use it all the time, so it's going to be in your backlines most of the war if you even make one to begin with. And secondly, if you want to use it, you're going to take a long time to get there because, fun fact, it has a snail-ass speed. And they're also boring as hell to be on. Since they're not frontline naval vessels, they're not going to be up against the other major ships in a large naval combat. No, they're going to be like 1 or 2 hexes behind, just refueling ships and occasionally seeing like 1 scout plane if they're lucky. So if you're sitting on that aircraft carrier, you're going to be sitting there for like 4+ hours, just sitting there doing nothing. Like, man,
I really hope I see a plane soon that's not on my faction. Oh wait, I'm like 3 hexes behind. I guess I'm not. Like, my biggest prediction is there's gonna be like 1 per faction per war, and it'll get used like twice. Like, once for a show off that, oh, we have this ship, and a second time if we're lucky, if there's some Battle of the Godcroft situation where we have like every single faction's navy just going at it to fight in some big battle. But you know, I'm sure they'll be wonderful someday. And you know, to round out this video, I was going to talk about how the paratrooper plane is actually pretty cool in the sense that, hey, you know, rather than just being a partisan supplement tool, it's actually a really good logi tool where both the paratroopers and the plane itself can be good logi delivering stuff. Especially the paratroopers, where they can just kill themselves and we give 8 crates each to locations. But you know, the Hell Satans of Foxhole like killed that out the moment they realized people started fucking doing that. So you know, paratrooper stocks are through the floor. I'm gonna miss them. The only thing I can really say that they're good for, or really not even good for, that's cool about the paratroopers is that the paratrooper plane for the wardens looks sick as hell. But beside that, I hope someone finds something to do with them besides just being another partisan thing. But, you know, I guess time will tell. And that's all of the aircraft and the aircraft carrier. But, you know, now that we've looked at each one individually, I think it's proper time we look at them as a large group together. So now that we're done, we have to answer the most important questions here. 1, did Foxhole make good vehicles? Yeah, I'd argue they're all pretty decent. And 2, well, which faction has the better aircraft? So give it a drum roll, please. And the answer is, I don't fucking know, actually. You see, initially I really wanted to say the Colonials, and honestly now I still am leaning towards Colonials for how good they are in the air compared to the Wardens. But with how many changes have come for the aircraft since I started this video till now, it's been a tough time for me to really discern a concrete opinion of one side is absolutely outclassing their opponent. And in all honesty, it's generally more balanced, I would say. Obviously, you know, there's still some discrepancies, some that I've already talked about, and some that honestly it would take me another 20 minutes to fully go into depth about how weird it is between each plane. But overall, I feel generally confident that it'll be a balanced start to next war. And you know, I might be just a hopeful sea maiden, but I feel optimistic about the first Airborne War, you know, despite my better judgment about how every single Foxhole thing has ever gone down. And I hope that Airborne's gonna be great, everything's gonna be great, and I'm gonna love it very, very much. And of course, the most important thing to remember as I close out this video is one final proverb that I think really well applies to this story. The man who chases after 2 rabbits has his dive bomber crash into the sea. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Any support is appreciated. If you want to play with me in Foxhole, join my clan, the UCF. They're an amazing bunch of people. They're a blast to play with. You want to watch other Foxhole content not from me, check out my good friend Salty Plays. His videos are great. And beside that, I hope to see you in future videos. I definitely will make a bunch for Airborne, you know, prime content time. But have a great day. Toodles.